From the highest lakes in the Himalayas all the way down to the sprawling basins of the Great Plains, freshwater lakes are just some of nature's most vital and beautiful creations. They are the lifeblood for entire communities, they are sanctuaries for wildlife, and they are the silent witnesses to history. So today, we're going to dive into these liquid jewels of India. And trust me, we're going to uncover a story that is way more surprising than you might think. That just perfectly captures the magic of a lake, doesn't it? They're not just these static bodies of water, they're a living reflection of the world around them. And today we're going to look deep into these Earth's eyes to really understand where they come from, why they're so important, and ultimately what their future holds. So let's start with the basics. What exactly makes a lake a lake? Well, scientifically, it's an inland body of water, but the real key is in the chemistry. A freshwater lake has a really low concentration of dissolved salts, and that simple fact is what makes it such a life-sustaining resource. There's a whole field of study for this. It's called limnology, and it helps us understand the incredible stories held in every single drop. Now, you might look at a lake and think it's timeless, right? Like it's been there forever. But geologically speaking, they're actually pretty temporary features, and each one is born from these immense, powerful forces. So let's get into how these incredible natural architects actually do their thing. Okay, so a lot of the world's deepest lakes are born from what you could call tectonic violence, where the Earth's crust literally pulls apart and creates this massive basin. And that's exactly how India's largest freshwater lake, Wular, was formed. Others are, you could say, children of ice, carved out by gigantic glaciers during the last ice age. And then some are born of fire and ash, filling up the craters left behind by volcanoes. It's just a wild reminder that our most serene landscapes are often the result of some incredibly dramatic events. So, that brings us to India. We know how lakes are formed, but how many does India actually have? Now, this sounds like a pretty simple question, right? But the answer is surprisingly complex, and it reveals something really fundamental about the country's landscape. If you go and search online, you'll get answers all over the place, from a few hundred to over 100,000. And the confusion really just comes from different definitions and the fact that there was never a single comprehensive survey. Well, that has finally changed. To get the real answer, we have to turn to the first ever census of water bodies, which was done by India's Ministry of Jal Shakti. And the total number they found is, it's just staggering. 2,424,540. Just let that sink in for a second. Over 2.4 million water bodies. So does that make India the most lake-rich country on Earth? Well, not exactly. See, that massive number isn't the whole story. Because when you actually break that number down, something absolutely fascinating emerges. The vast majority, we're talking nearly 60%, are classified as ponds. And what we would officially call lakes? Well, that's less than 1% of the total, just 0.9%. That brings the official count to about 22,000. So what on earth explains this massive difference? And this right here is where the census reveals the real story. A whopping 78% of all those water bodies in India, they're not natural, they're man-made. And what that tells us is that India's hydrogeography is a landscape shaped less by geology and more by a millennium of human ingenuity, building structures to capture the seasonal monsoon rains. To really get what that means, let's just compare India to Canada, the undisputed world champion of lakes. Canada has almost 900,000 lakes. Why? Because glaciers carved up its entire landscape during the Ice Age. But India's story? It's completely different. Its landscape isn't defined by ancient ice, but by centuries and centuries of human adaptation to the monsoon. Okay, so to truly appreciate these incredible ecosystems, let's zoom in. We're gonna move from the big national statistics to a living, breathing example. We're going to the crown of Kashmir to explore India's largest freshwater lake, Wular. Wular is just immense. Its size can swell all the way up to 260 square kilometers depending on the season, but its most critical role is protecting the entire Kashmir Valley. It acts like a giant natural sponge, absorbing floodwaters from the Jhelum River and preventing total catastrophe. And on top of that, it's an economic powerhouse, providing an incredible 60% of all the fish caught in Kashmir. But this precious jewel is in serious trouble. The lake has shrunk dramatically over the last few decades, and the causes are entirely human-driven. First, massive siltation from deforestation in the surrounding areas is literally choking the lake. And second, there's been illegal encroachment, with people converting the lake's edges for farming. It's just a stark reminder of how fragile these vital ecosystems really are. And really, Wular's story highlights a much bigger truth. Across the entire nation, these lakes are so much more than just water. They are absolutely indispensable to both the economy and the incredible biodiversity of the subcontinent. The crisis facing Wular is so concerning because these lakes are the silent engines of our well-being. Think about it. They provide drinking water to our cities, they irrigate the fields that feed us, they generate clean power, and they drive entire local economies through tourism. They perform all these essential services that we just so often take for granted. And the value of these lakes goes way beyond just human use. Just take a look at Loktak Lake in Manipur. It's famous for these things called fumdis. They're these incredible floating islands made of vegetation and soil. And this completely unique environment is home to the critically endangered Sangai deer, also known as the dancing deer, because of the way it moves on that spongy ground. This is literally the world's only floating national park, a true treasure of biodiversity. But this incredible biodiversity is facing a silent, devastating crisis. Just look at this number. Since 1970, global populations of freshwater animals, we're talking fish, amphibians, reptiles, have plummeted by an average of 84%. 84. That is a catastrophic rate of decline, double what we're seeing on land or in the oceans. It is the planet's loudest possible alarm bell for the health of our lakes and rivers. So with that kind of urgency and the growing pressures of water scarcity, what does the future even hold? Let's move to our final section and see if it's possible for India to actually engineer its own water security. So if nature doesn't provide enough lakes, can we just build them? Well, creating one is a massive engineering feat. You have to find a suitable location, usually a natural valley. Then you build a dam to block a river, letting water pile up behind it. Of course, this involves some pretty significant environmental trade-offs, but in regions that are facing extreme water stress, these man-made oases can be utterly transformative. So where would an effort like this be the most impactful? Well, you can make an incredibly compelling case for Rajasthan. The state faces critical water scarcity, yet its Aravalli Hills provide perfect natural basins. Its monsoon rainfall pattern is absolutely ideal for capture. And most importantly, there's an unparalleled history of success here. I mean, just look at the magnificent artificial lakes of Udaipur. It's a perfect alignment of need, opportunity, and historical expertise. Ultimately, what all of this shows us is that India's water story has always been one of human intervention and adaptation. It's this ancient tradition of harnessing the monsoon to sustain life. And as we look to the future, the question isn't just about protecting the precious few natural lakes we have, but about whether this ancient tradition, now armed with modern science, can secure the nation's water future for generations to come.